as workers in frontline industries risk their lives to provide essential services, often for low wages. Pandemic profiteers saw their wealth skyrocket.
The combined wealth of the 657 billionaires in the country grew more than $1.3 trillion, nearly 45% since the pandemic began.
And these profits came at a high cost for frontline workers who faced elevated risks of COVID-19 exposure.
Amazon reports, listen to this, 19,000 of its U.S. workers have tested positive for COVID in the last 6 months.
Workers rarely get an adequate share of the wealth their labor creates. In 2020, the median salary at Amazon was under $30,000, while its founder, Jeff Bezos, made hundreds of times that, over $13 million, every hour. While seemingly ignoring how these issues may be connected, some have decried a shortage of people who want to work in frontline and service sectors. But a growing movement is putting this narrative on its head.
We work as well as own this company, and we designed it to what would work for us, what would make it not feel like a job when we come into this environment, what makes it feel like more of just being around your friends and getting a job done versus actually being at a job with somebody ruling and watching over you.
Under the radar, the small but growing sector of worker-run co-ops, part of the larger cooperative ecosystem, is demonstrating that you don't need bosses. Workers can be successful if granted the necessary power and resources. Co-ops are concentrated in frontline and service sectors, which have been hard hit by COVID-19 and are known for low pay and hazardous working conditions. The vast majority of rich corporations and CEOs built their fortunes on inherited wealth and privilege, but co-ops have limited access to capital. Worker owners tend to be women and people of color, and from communities that have been denied wealth-building opportunities. Despite these challenges, worker co-ops have proved resilient in weathering COVID-19. In this special report, we profile 8 co-ops in 4 states and speak to worker owners about how they survived a pandemic that's laid ruin to so many businesses. And we examine the real-world limitations, challenges, and even downsides to their model. Pam Armstrong is one of the estimated 1.4 million home care aides in the U.S., most of whom are women of color. They provide assistance to elderly or disabled patients who are unable to care for themselves. The sector is marked with extremely high turnover, low wages, few benefits, or workplace protections. Close to 1 in 4 live in poverty. Their job puts them on the very front line of the pandemic, often without adequate PPE from their employers. Home care is precarious work. Agencies offer a measure of stability, but also typically take a sizable cut of the workers' earnings and don't give them control of their working conditions.
Working outside of Cooperative, I had no control, right? I didn't have no power of when I went to work, how much I made, what money I put in, what money I could take out, but now I can. So it's totally different.
When the pandemic hit, worker-run businesses prioritized the needs of their employees over profits.
When COVID-19 hit, it was a surprise to everyone. But Cooperative made sure we had our PPE, N95 masks, our surgical masks, gloves, soap, sanitizing, thermometers, and they made sure that we was known that we was important.
2 years ago, Armstrong joined Cooperative Home Care Associates, or CHCA. It launched in 1985 as a worker-run home care agency that sought to empower its dozen worker owners with dignity, living wages, and a democratic workplace.
Working with Cooperative have opened my eyes, and I'm happy. I'm not just putting on a uniform or putting on an outfit and going into work doing a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 1 and miserable. I'm happy. So it's a difference.
When CHCA was confronted by a shortage of PPE at the outset of the pandemic, they improvised by partnering with other co-ops. The Carolina Textile District and Opportunity Threads came to the rescue.
They shifted their industry and what they were making to make pedestrian masks for us, gowns for us, shields for us. So they made all these protective equipment, and they were able to raise funds as well for us to have these items at a discounted price. So that's something beautiful that I think that helped us through the really hectic and scary times of the pandemic, because when we needed it the most, other cooperatives came together and gave us what we needed to survive.
3.5 decades after its founding, CHCA is the largest co-op in the country. It's grown to 2,000 unionized employees, half of whom are worker owners. This scale comes with benefits, like discounted rates when procuring supplies and equipment. Because like many co-ops, CHCA operates democratically, every worker owner gets a vote, this process can be challenging.
And really, I guess the challenge can be sometimes when we have to have them vote on a certain action. Getting them mobilized and doing something as simple as getting them to vote can be a tedious process.
CHCA trains its workers on financial literacy and provides other skills necessary to become a worker owner.
So when we make decisions, everyone that's a part of the team, it's serious to them, it's important to them, so we make the right decision, make the good decision. Because it's not about us, it's about our employees.
Every employee at CHCA is eligible to become a worker owner after they complete a free training and put in 3 months on the job. However, their ability to retain workers is still limited.
We're getting paid minimum wage and we need more money. So that's one of the tough parts of the job as well, because I love what I do.
That's because virtually all of their clients rely on Medicaid, and the state mandates home care workers are paid minimum wage. At $15 an hour, New York City's minimum wage is not a living wage.
One of the things that we would love to change is the pay that we provide our workers. We would love to pay them what they truly and justly deserve to be paid.
CHCA participated in a campaign that's demanding increased pay for home care aides. Such efforts have failed thus far, but advocates say they'll keep up the fight. Armstrong is working on getting her GED so she can provide a better life for her children.
The positive of working in this organization is I could think more. I could think of my future more. I don't have to worry about the day-to-day. I could think about 5 years from now. And I could start planning on what else I want to do in life.
Across the country, worker-owned businesses are driven to meet the needs of their communities.
1/3 of households across the country are struggling to afford the amount and quality of food they would like. The pandemic has emphasized the issue of food insecurity and racial disparity in the U.S.
The communities hardest hit by COVID-19 have historically been denied access to healthy food.
In Black and brown communities, South and West Side communities in Chicago, already a number of these communities face food insecurity, like 88% of households already have food insecurity.
An issue the pandemic amplified.
Food insecurity has gone up 50% above what it already was.
The worker-run cooperative Shy Fresh Kitchen launched as the pandemic hit to provide healthy meals to the community and to support food sovereignty, which aims to guarantee access to culturally appropriate, healthy, and sustainable food.
Got good stuff today. We got collard greens with smoked turkey meat, as well as fried chicken, macaroni and cheese, broccoli, and our chef's specialty pizza. It's a vegetarian pizza that everybody loves. And before, I was in a transitional home, and when COVID-19 hit, it was a struggle to get any type of meal, because we wasn't allowed to go outside, and the stuff that they was bringing was horrible. So, when this opportunity, it just all clicked in together for my life, journey to be able to do this at a time like that.
Shy Fresh Kitchen is owned and run by formerly incarcerated women of color.
I've been knowing all of the co-workers from our incarceration. I already knew all of them. Well, to me, what makes a co-op special is we designed our own job. We work as well as own this company, and we designed it to what would work for us, what would make it not feel like a job when we come into this environment.
They're like a powerful and fun and deeply loving crew that have turned our little project or idea into a business that is rooted in all of our deepest values, our values of liberation, of humanity, and centering the needs of folks in our community.
Co-ops can be limited by their consensus-based decision-making, a tool of democratic governance that is alien to many workers in the U.S. and can be difficult to learn.
We are not trained to make decisions in large groups efficiently and respectfully. We are often trained either to give orders or to receive them, and not to collectively move things forward.
Like most co-ops, Shy Fresh receives little or no support from government agencies. They have been able to access capital by receiving several grants, overcoming a challenge all cooperatives face. But they still struggle to secure large contracts that would allow them to scale up.
We are trying to be competitive bidder on different contracts that are coming out. We are minority and women-owned certified at the county level, which works at both the state and the city level too. Absolutely, we could have more support. We could have support with resources, navigating a lot of, it would be great to have someone to help me navigate the RFP process and to have folks reaching out to us specifically as a business that is creating community wealth, that is having a positive impact on our own communities. If the city had resources and outreach specifically available to us, that would be really powerful.
The challenges facing disinvested communities are immense and won't be solved by co-ops alone, but Renee Hatcher argues they can be part of the solution.
I think the Shy Fresh is a really beautiful example of some of what we should be thinking about around the move for abolition, in creating a new and different type of economy that is not exploitative, but also really trying to deal with all of the harm that the carceral state has inflicted specifically on Black communities.
Shy Fresh is one part of a co-op ecosystem focused on providing access to healthy and fresh food. Brooklyn Packers launched in 2016 as a Black-owned food distribution, packing, and sourcing cooperative. When the pandemic hit, they sprung into action, packing thousands of boxes of fresh produce a week.
A lot of people started coming to us because they knew we do food distribution, and a lot of people lost their jobs, unable to afford food, were homebound. And then at the same time, all these different neighborhood mutual aid groups started forming.
Their 6 worker owners quickly pivoted their business model to meet the exploding demand.
It was really cool to be able to jump in so quickly to the emergency food response and I think because a small co-op team, you don't have to go through a lot of different channels. You can kind of everyone gets together and it's should we do this? You're yes, let's do it. And then we can do it.
Like with all co-ops that operate on consensus, it can limit how fast they make decisions.
I feel in general, we move more slowly. We may be able to put our heads together and make decisions quickly in the sense that you don't have to ask your manager, who then asks your boss, who then asks the CEO. We don't have to do any of that.
Again, co-ops are highly concentrated in the food and service sector, both of which are notorious for low wages and exploitative working conditions.
Especially in the food industry, where there's a lot of exploitation on every part of the chain, from growing to processing to selling food. You can work in these jobs for below minimum wage for forever and still not really get anywhere.
The worker owners at Brooklyn Packers are building on long practiced traditions of food sovereignty and mutual aid in the Black community.
We really are taking ownership of multiple parts of the food chain, and that we can decide who we source from. We can pay ourselves well to do the packing and to do the delivery. We hire out for our delivery drivers for the CSA, and we pay them well. And so it just works in the way that we can support multiple parts of the food chain in a way that running a business from the top down, it doesn't happen that way.
Banks typically don't lend to co-ops. Requiring a worker owner to offer collateral or personal guarantee is incompatible with the cooperative structure. In 2016, when Brooklyn Packers launched, they were able to get a $5,000 loan and technical assistance from the Working World, a New York-based firm that has provided financial and technical assistance to dozens of co-ops across the globe without requiring collateral. Over the past decade, the Working World's model has spread across the country, providing more opportunities for worker co-ops to get off the ground. If you want to launch a co-op, Baltimore may be one of the best places in the U.S. to do it. That's according to Bloomberg Businessweek. That's because Baltimore has a strong cooperative ecosystem that includes a revolving loan fund, which was created to launch co-ops and help them grow. This cooperative ecosystem has proven resilient in weathering COVID-19. It was March of 2020. The pandemic dealt Joe Squared Pizza.
And it's kind of like, okay, this is it. It felt very final. Felt very much like, the end of an era.
After 15 years as a fixture in Baltimore's Station North neighborhood, co-owners Joe Edwardson and his mom, Kathy Palikoff, were forced to close their doors.
I've only been here maybe 3 years, but it definitely feels like a special place. And so it was sad to kind of see it go. And yeah, I definitely did not think it'd be coming back.
But they soon found hope. The former workers and owners began exploring worker ownership, and after receiving a number of pandemic-related grants, loans, and support from other worker owners, Joe Squared was able to reopen in December of 2020.
I don't know that we would have gotten the support if we were just trying to come back traditionally. It's a more democratic way to operate.
They got help from BREAD, the Baltimore Roundtable for Economic Democracy, which works with 20 co-ops in Baltimore. Its national counterpart, Seed Commons, currently lends to about 60 co-ops nationwide. Their networks were created to share knowledge and financial resources, and have proven to be an effective stopgap for cooperative businesses struggling to survive the pandemic. Kate Khatib helped launch BREAD and Seed Commons after co-founding Red Emma's coffee shop and bookstore in 2004.
Over the course of the pandemic, 0 of the businesses that have received loans from the Seed Commons infrastructure have closed as a result of the pandemic.
One of Baltimore's oldest co-ops, Emma's sought to empower workers traditionally marginalized in the restaurant industry. Today, Emma's has a dozen worker owners, including Whitney Roberts.
When I was growing up, I never thought that I could be an owner, with my demographics, my background, and the way my life has, dealt the cards out to me.
Emma's also uses consensus-based decision-making, which comes with all the requisite limitations.
The only time that it's hard to come to consensus is if it's a block, but usually if people block, it's for a good reason, and that's being heard and me. Okay, well, why do you feel like this?
Like other co-ops, Emma's faced the challenge of being unable to access traditional loans, which often require collateral or for individuals to go into debt. But worker owners took the knowledge they gained from navigating a path to self-sufficiency and used it to help other co-ops.
So one of the things that we found as we started to build Red Emma's and we started to grow it is that we really had to be also thinking about and adapting and creating our own sources of financing if we wanted to see cooperatives grow.
So in 2013, Emma's turned to the working world for a loan to expand their business. This then led to the creation of BREAD, which operates in Baltimore, and Seed Commons, which spans 26 cities and controls $25 million. In 2021, with the financial support of BREAD, Emma's announced plans to purchase 2 buildings, which will become their forever home. The first loan made by BREAD was made in 2016 to Taharka Brothers Ice Cream, which just completed its conversion to worker ownership in December of 2020.
We have some of the young guys in here, Dion and Kevin. They're our managers in the kitchen. They help produce all the ice cream and help create a lot of the flavors. And we have flavor committees where the team can come up with a lot of different amazing flavors.
Yeah, worker co-op, it changes the solution so much. It just giving the gratitude that the employees can actually feel ownership to know their hard work does not go unnoticed. And then it makes you want to do better for yourself, no matter whatever the obstacle is set around your surroundings.
Working at a co-op won't make you wealthy overnight.
Everyone always thinks it makes everyone rich. That's not the case.
And it's often more demanding than a typical job.
Everyone still has to work really hard to get what you think you deserve.
Co-ops like Taharka Brothers offer employees profit sharing and other benefits that aren't offered by their competitors, which can put them at a disadvantage.
We have an advantage of treating everyone fair, and that comes out in our product, which is why I believe our product is so good, because we give everyone an opportunity to become an owner, to speak their mind, be a part of committees, go out and get education.
So when the pandemic brought hardship, the workers were ready to adapt.
We lost 70% of all our accounts. We had to make a business pivot. We started our home delivery system, which kept the business alive. Without home deliveries, a lot of our guys would have lost their jobs.
It wasn't easy to uproot their entire business model.
It literally was just all hands on deck. All the owners are doing deliveries late at night, coming in the morning early to put all the paints up on the freezer, or just being able to give an extra hand with packing orders or giving assistance wherever it's needed.
That DeHarker Brothers survived a pandemic that laid ruin to so many other small businesses like theirs offers insight into a bigger trend. Although comprehensive data is not yet available, a survey of 140 co-ops across the country suggests that instead of simply closing down, co-ops were able to harness their collective decision-making to adapt their businesses and avoid layoffs. Despite their track record of success, co-ops face yet another major limitation. They aren't typically given the financial incentives reserved for large corporations like Amazon. But there's one notable exception, the Evergreen Cooperatives in Cleveland, Ohio. Their first co-op, the Evergreen Cooperative Laundry, was launched in 2009 with 8 employees. Startup capital was provided by the City of Cleveland and the Cleveland Foundation, which provided $3 million to start a revolving loan fund to launch local co-ops. Local anchor institutions also invested in supporting the co-ops, and perhaps most importantly, agreed to shift some of the $3 billion they spent annually on goods and services to local worker-owned businesses.
They're already spending literally billions of dollars a year on goods and services, and so the catalyst for this was if we could just shift a little bit of those dollars that, again, they're already going to be spent on goods and services. If we could put a business plan together to launch some new companies that would enable them to spend more of that money locally, they were willing to do that, and they committed to do that.
This became known as the Cleveland model. It wasn't successful overnight.
There were lean years, very lean years, where we didn't think we were going to make it. And that changed up the dynamics of how we did things.
As the laundry expanded, they moved away from direct worker control.
We took away some of the day-to-day decisions and put it in the management team's hands at that point. Because when you get 50 people in there arguing over whether or not we should buy napkins or not is not the way to go about it.
Just like at other co-ops, working at the laundry is a lot more than a 9-to-5.
Here, we work till we're finished, till the job's done. Yeah, and if you're done with your area, you're going over here to help this area, and you're going over here to help that area, and everybody works until we're done. So that does cause a little bit more differences.
By 2021, the laundry had grown to 150 employees. More than half are worker owners. The laundry starting wage is $12 an hour, but the typical worker makes $14.75, and with annual profit sharing, makes the equivalent of $20 an hour. Their success has even allowed them to take on international competitors.
I'm going to tell you right now, not only have we competed with the big boys in laundry, we've beaten them. Okay? This plant right here used to be run by Sodexo, which is one of the biggest, laundry businesses and thing. They tossed them out of here for us because our quality was better and they knew our job was better, and they had given us a little work here and there, and they had seen just the difference in quality between us and them. And we were doing the job just as fast, and we were doing the job cheaper.
Just like at other co-ops when the pandemic hit, the laundry quickly put safety measures in place so they could protect worker safety and continue to operate.
If you look at our records, we grow just as much money during the pandemic than we did the year before. During the pandemic, we got raised. We was able to get raises. We was able to get profit sharing 3 times, and that's during a pandemic.
Today, Evergreen employs 260 employees in a diverse array of co-ops, and in 2018, they pivoted to acquisitions. In October 2020, Evergreen helped convert Phoenix Coffee, a 3-decades-old coffee shop chain with 5 stores and a roaster, to employee ownership. When the pandemic hit, Phoenix had shifted to a to-go model and also implemented safety measures. But workers still risked their lives to keep their doors open.
And they put their own bodies on the line to ensure the success of this business. Now they get to see some upside and some reward from that, because at the end of the year, rather than paying whatever the profits are as a distribution to our owner, it's shared equally among all of the members.
Kristen Logan is a manager and worker owner at Phoenix.
Before this, I wasn't able to say that I was a business owner, and they were able to put me in a situation where I'm a young Black female. Not only do I manage this space, but I own part of this, and I have a say-so in it. And that's something that is, I hold that very, very dear.
With an estimated 6,000 employees nationwide, co-ops remain a small part of the U.S. economy. But as the pandemic has highlighted, the low wages and dangerous working conditions service workers face to make a living, worker owners say co-ops can be part of the solution.
co-ops provide a solution for America because it's giving more people who are like me at service level the opportunity to have a living wage.
Co-ops come with their downsides and limitations and won't fix structural inequality in America, but they do offer a path to wealth creation that's becoming increasingly rare. For The Real News, this is Jaisal Noor.
That was great. Thank you so much, Jaisal. Thank you so much to all the co-ops that took part in that piece. Thank you so much for all the film teams in so many different cities that helped us get some of that beautiful footage to tell that story. So we've seen the piece. It's amazing. And now I really want to talk to Jaisal Noor, our Real News reporter who helped put the piece together, and also some folks for some of the co-ops that we just watched, and kind of get a deeper sense into what couldn't go in the piece, lessons learned, and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce everybody. Of course, we have Jaisal Noor, who put together that amazing piece. Jaisal, again, such a great job. Thank you so much for doing that. Then we have Najee Haynes-Follins of Red Emmas here in Baltimore. We have Raina Kennedy from Brooklyn Packers. And we got Vinny Green at Taharka Brothers Ice Cream, also right here in Baltimore. Thank you so much for being on, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Jaisal, I really want to start with you because, this is my first time seeing this piece all the way through. I got to watch some of it earlier today. I saw the script through many drafts. You've been working super hard. Can you talk a little bit about what made you kind of take on this story and decide that this is kind of the thing that you want to talk about in this moment?
Yeah, thanks for doing this, and thank you, Lisa and The Real News, for letting me spend so much time on this project. It was really a privilege, especially in this day and age, to get support to do something where you get to spend a lot of time on one story. I've known about co-ops for years, but a couple years ago, I got a tour of the worker co-ops in Baltimore, and I was familiar with a lot of them. I'd been to a lot of them, but just to get a sense of the scale, there's almost 24 worker co-ops in Baltimore, and the scale and just the incredible work they're doing, and the fact that in this economy, when we have such little power, such little control over our lives, that people are coming together to build power and to build control and to build democracy and get to decide, what their labor goes into. I think it's really powerful. And then, so this project's been a long time in the works, but especially now when, we have COVID hitting, we have all these crises happening all over the world. It's easy to get lost in despair and focus on all the terrible, sad things happening in the world and lose track of the good things that are happening, the positive things, and the power of collective action. I think those are all, the most important things we can all be focusing on. And, again, thanks to all the worker owners that took part in this. And just so our audience knows, there's going to be individual stories about all the co-ops, and the one on Taharka Brothers already came out. So you'll get to hear from more worker owners and get to hear more about the ins and outs of each co-op and sort of what they've had to overcome. But I kind of wanted to give an overview of how they all connect, and in a lot of cases work together. Share resources, share money. And, obviously with COVID, it was the frontline workers. While the CEOs got rich, while a lot of us got to work from home, frontline workers didn't have that choice. And so they really risked their lives So I wanted to kind of highlight how people got through and and still rebuilding from all the devastation, but learning some powerful lessons and putting workers first. I think that's something you rarely hear these days, but putting like that formula, putting workers first, giving workers the power, is a successful model, and that's something that we all need to more people need to know about and find ways that they can support that vital mission.
Awesome. And now I want to kind of talk to our whole panel. It feels really poignant that we're having this conversation right now. Like you can log on to social media and you see signs in like Wendy's and at McDonald's, and they're like, sorry, we can't open because nobody wants to work here. But they're not wanting to work there because who would want to work under these terrible, circumstances where you're not getting any money? Mask orders are going away across the country. So you're dealing with people that are going to be breathing all of you in what is still a pandemic. And I think that you guys all offer a glimpse into what another life could be. I think that for me, this pandemic has been really revolutionary as far as like the things that I will and won't tolerate. It's made me more kind of dedicated to the things that I care about and want to fight for. But I really wanted to ask you guys, and maybe we'll start with you, Najee. What are the things that you learned about labor and working in this pandemic?
I think what I learned was that I do not have to work myself into the ground.
Yes.
And that was a huge one. That my tendency was to just work and work and work and work and be on autopilot working. And then when we had to pause, I was like, oh, I was really working myself into the ground. And, I had multiple jobs in addition to Red Emma's. And then I sort of cut away some stuff and focused only on Red Emma's. And it's been a huge breath of fresh air for me, learning that I did not have to work myself into the ground to survive.
And what about you, Raina?
I would definitely echo that sentiment of like not having to work yourself to death, but also I learned that you can like work and do things that you like to do and enjoy. And so many jobs that I've just had tasks handed down to me and projects handed down to me and been like, well, I guess the boss wants me to do it, so I have to do it. And in a co-op, and especially during this pandemic, like we've really been able to create everything that we're doing. And it's amazing to go to work and actually like what you do and like your coworkers, and feel like you're really like making something happen and that you have like full say in what goes on, which I think is really important. And which is why I'm like so inspired by seeing all these McDonald's work and be like, actually, no, we're leaving, because they're like, okay, we're taking this back. And I think once everyone realizes they can do that, it's like game over for for the corporations.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of did a similar thing with my work here at the Real News. Like there's enough work here to just work constantly, which I'm sure Jaisal and other folks watching know, but I couldn't because I was just also dealing with the trauma of living in a country that is going through what we went through. But then when I stopped, because I was like, I have to, I would feel crazy. It felt crazy to not be working. I was like, what do I do now? So yeah, Vinny, I want you to answer the question too. Like, what have you kind of learned? Because I think you might be maybe the youngest person on the panel, or maybe you just look youngest, I don't know. But like, what did you learn about kind of like the nature of work and labor going through this pandemic that we've been through?
I think overall, I learned that you can overcome any obstacle, but to overcome anything, for me, I would have to say hard work pays off, because if all the owners wouldn't have put our mindset, put all our hands together and make it work best way possible, the company would have went under. Like in the short film, we lost 70% of all our wholesale accounts. All 3 of our retail shops was closed. So we took a huge impact off of that. And then luckily we were able to keep the vast majority of all our employees employed during this pandemic. And all our employees at the same time in the middle of the pandemic was able to receive profit sharing checks in the middle of the pandemic. It really made your hard work to really feel appreciated, because literally it was all hands on deck on trying to make it come. We had to make a quick 60-second business pivot. We all had to put our brains together to think of how we can survive through this pandemic, and the home deliveries literally saved us, and all the love and support that we got from the people from Baltimore and loved and supported our brand and our product literally kept us alive. So
and the ice cream also helped a lot of people get through the pandemic too. Because I know I was calling you guys up like every week to get like more ice cream, and and like share it with the neighbors and stuff. It was really awesome.
And especially that it was so many people that was actually working from home, and they was able to have some type of relief to know that things can still be normal and enjoy ice cream at home at the same time.
We gotta ship Raina some of that roasted strawberry.
yeah, that's the plan.
Please. And what about you, Jaisal? Like we're at the Real News, we are not a co-op, but what did you kind of learn working on these stories, and even like having to work, like you've been through personal things as you've been kind of drowning in work, getting this series out? What have you kind of learned about labor also from doing this?
Well, it makes me want to work for a co-op for sure, just seeing all the amazing things people are doing. But yeah, I mean, just the perseverance of people coming, again, I keep saying like collective power, but just like literally people coming together and supporting each other. And, like what Brooklyn Packers was doing, like what Red Emma's was doing and Tarker Brothers was doing, just feeding people when people don't have food. It was like one in three families didn't have enough food, was worried about their next meal in the pandemic, in the richest country in the history of the world. So you had people coming together to make sure they were fed. Like imagine if our government actually cared about that. Imagine if if people actually had wealth put behind these basic services. So I mean, I think we've realized that our society is kind of hanging on a thread. It's like what a lot of people already knew, but just one little shock to the system, right? One little virus can turn our lives upside down. So I hope what the lesson is that, we need to do more stuff like invest in co-ops, invest in sustainable models, make sure people have enough food, make sure they have access to healthy food. One of the other things that the pandemic brought up is the effects of systemic racism. Like there's a reason why the pandemic hit Black and brown communities so hard. It's because they've been denied wealth, they've been denied access to healthy food, mass incarceration. There's all these things that have we've also kind of accepted for so long. Like it doesn't have to be that way. We can change it, and co-ops are really showing a model for real change and for democratic change. You have to be accountable to being a co-op. So that's the other thing too. There's transparency. There's democracy, and you can still, get a slice of the pie at the end of the day.
Yeah. So another question I kind of want to throw out, and maybe anyone can start answering, but I pointed out that Jaisal and I are not in a co-op. There are lots of places that unfortunately don't, and maybe even folks who will be forced into work or forced to work under conditions that are not great for them and kind of deny them their humanity. But what are ways that maybe telling these stories or working in the way that you guys do can maybe help people that are not involved in co-ops? Maybe Raina, we'll start with you.
I think just showing that there's another way of doing things. I know I've been working in the food industry for almost 10 years in retail, food service, et cetera. And a lot of times in this job, as I said before, you kind of just do what your boss tells you to do and you don't feel like you have any say in anything. But the people who work in these jobs are smart, interesting people. And a lot of times are like, if you've been in the food industry for a long time, a lot of times you're not doing it just because you have a job. You do it because you love food and you love working in food. And that's where I started, where I love food and working in food. But in my head, I was like, I can't survive on these wages but I also like don't want to quit working in this industry. So like, how can I make this better? And I think like people who run businesses, you just need to listen to your employees. You don't have to work people to the bone to get things done. And if everyone is a little happier and works a little bit less and feels more cared for, I think they'll see that your business is running smoother. Maybe you're bringing in more profits. Maybe you're retaining employees longer. And so I think just bringing in some of these like ways of actually like caring about your employees and the work environment that you're creating in a way that is actually real and not just like, oh, we're a family, we care about you, but like by giving people time off or like actual sick days and stuff like that. And so I think like in any environment where people can help create and shape the work environment that they're in, I think it's just better for everyone.
And Vinny, what about you? What do you think that the way that you guys work at Taharka Brothers could maybe help other folks who are not in working at co-ops?
I mean, I think first and foremost, the people that can give you the real insight of the business is the employees. So I feel as though if the employees feel like they can have ownership, a sense of ownership, and they can grow inside the company, their work ethics will display that. You can't just say that you want to work your employees at their most efficient way possible, and they're making unlivable wages. They have no say so. It's pretty much like a drag day to go to work. But when you actually motivate your team and know that their voice is being heard, they push themselves. They want to do better. They want to perform better. They want to get the best out of their day. I think that's the number one thing that we learn. And then you get to sit down and really get the insight of what is best for your staff and what's the best thing for your employees. Your employees appreciate that more, and they will show it back as in how they perform in their work ethic.
Okay. And Najee, what about you?
Yeah, I definitely want to echo the idea of knowing that you're being cared for, and not in like a superficial way, but like you're a human being first before you're a worker, and that the people around you are supporting you, and that if something goes wrong or if like, I don't know, something crazy happens in your life, there'll be like financial support. People will help you get back and forth to work, that kind of thing. Just knowing you're being cared for is like it's huge.
And Jaisal, I know that this was specifically a solutions journalism project. So can you talk a little bit about maybe like seeing this through the lens of the way that they kind of tell their stories? Like what were you hoping that people would get out of this piece, including people that are not employed at co-ops or maybe never even heard of them?
Yeah. So, I really appreciate Solutions Journalism supporting this project, because we were able to hire these teams of like amazing videographers in all these cities instead of me just being on the phone, trying to talk to people, like actually going to visit their co-ops and talk to multiple workers. I think what Solutions Journalism is great about is supporting work that, the idea is not just to like paint a bad picture about the reality we face. It's not hard to do. Right. But it's like, what is the work that's actually being done to address these problems? That's a much harder question. And that's why I sort of chose co-ops, because even before the pandemic, democratizing your workplace is a solution to a lot of problems. Like paying workers fair is a solution to a lot of worker problems, right? Giving communities wealth, whose wealth has been robbed away, will solve a lot of problems. So these are like what they're doing is really solutions oriented, and they're making solutions. They are the solution in a lot of ways. And then with the pandemic, you had so many people getting sick, so many frontline workers getting sick, people that are already living in poverty or close to it. And so when you give workers the power to decide, whether you want to have indoor dining, just give them that choice. I think and for co-ops, they're able to say, no, like, this is crazy. Like we don't want to risk our lives. We'll find a way to change our business model to stay afloat. And the other thing, which Solutions Journalism was kind of good in nudging me on, was that first of all, it's not a silver bullet. You're not gonna like fix capitalism through co-ops. You're not going to end racism or poverty. And, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of these jobs are, you know, it's hard work. It's not like easy work. You're not going to get rich. And I think Dietrich had that great quote. It's like not going to make you like super rich overnight. It is hard work, but it's better work. And it's empowering work, and you get to set the conditions. And so it's like I got saying earlier, it's a solution in the sense that it's expanding our imagination on what is possible.
Okay. One of the things, actually kind of talking about things that maybe make it an imperfect solution. I don't know. My brain always goes to the worst possible scenarios because that's how I'm built. So, but I heard someone at Red Emma's in the piece talk about conflict and how sometimes there's conflict. Can you guys talk a little bit about, and I know we heard a little bit about Red Emma's, so maybe we'll go to you last. But can you guys talk a little bit about how, when you are working collectively, how conflict is resolved? Because it's not just going to be like the big boss that says, this is what we're going to do. Maybe we can start with you, Vinny.
So, I mean, with the decision makings, it can be kind of difficult. I believe in one of the clips that sometimes like the decision making can sometimes get prolonged. But I think that's one of the good things about being a co-op is where you can hash things out and discuss what is the pros and the cons and what's best for everyone and not just for one particular viewpoint or one particular person. We can all make decisions that we can all benefit out of. It sometimes can get hectic, but sometimes you have to know when to call it as a vote. So we have a thing where the majority rules, but it's a collective of all the owners making these decisions and trying to make the best decision that works for everyone. And we always try to hear everyone's thoughts to make it work.
Okay. And what about you, Raina?
I actually have a good anecdote from when we were filming this piece, which is that I was doing my interview and Eric from Meerkat Media asked me like, oh, what's your decision-making process like? And at the time I was like, actually, we come to consensus pretty regularly and I haven't experienced a ton of conflict. And even if someone's kind of on the fence, we're all able to talk about it and get to a decision that way. But then like that very day, we had kind of a contentious decision to make. And the vote was going to be split. And so I was like, oh my God, you're witnessing the first time this has ever happened. And he showed us this like way of like a thumbs up or like middle thumb or a range of your thumb that they use in their co-op. Which was like a cool thing to learn. And so I guess the moral of the story is we're always learning about how to make decisions together, but that was really helpful in the moment. And it helped us break the tie a little bit. So I think I think are going to use that going forward. But I guess this is to say like the process of learning to make decisions with people other than just yourself or like one other person is a learning curve and a learning process, but I think it can be really fruitful. And it makes for like really good discussions and like you're always retooling your values and kind of like figuring out which direction you want to go in and getting everyone onto the same page, even if there's minor disagreements, has been like really helpful. And so like, I feel also that people can be kind of afraid of conflict, and especially in the workplace. And I think like conflict is okay. And it just means that people have different ideas and maybe you need to talk it out. And so this has really been helping me kind of like learn that conflict is not bad. It's okay to disagree, but as long as you can come together at the end and say, we're all on the same team, so we're going to do what's best for the team. And then that way it can work out.
Awesome. That's a great answer. Thank you. And again, Najee, we heard a little bit about the process at Red Emma's in the documentary, but can you talk a little bit more? The person that was interviewed, I think, was talking about how, you know, sometimes there'll be somebody that can hold things up and then there'll be like a process where people are like, okay, well, what are you thinking? Can you talk maybe a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we just talk. And so if someone's feeling some type of way about whatever, they're going to block. We want to hear why. It matters to us what they're feeling and thinking. And usually we can get past the block once we've heard whatever things are making them feel nervous or trepidatious or upset about the decision we're about to make. And also hearing them out might change the way that we make the decisions. We've definitely had meetings where we thought we were going to come to a decision, and then we realized that there were some things that we just didn't think about before we were going to make that decision. And so we table it, give people time to think and breathe and talk outside of the decision-making space, and then come back again to make decisions. And that it's just slow. It's always a lot slower than you think it's going to be, but it's so much richer when you give people space to think about and talk through all the stuff.
It feels like the thing that is really coming out from these stories, and even hearing you guys, flesh out what we didn't get to hear, is that this is a model that really, it doesn't just take like for a very physical job, like say Brooklyn Packers. It doesn't just say, I'm going to take your body and your brain. Nobody cares about that. Like it really is a full investment, but also maybe an investment on folks' own terms. So it's not just like you are selling yourself. It's more like I'm imagining having to have those conversations over and over, as much as they suck, but they also really help you get on the same page about like, okay, well, what are we actually doing here and why? Because people can show up to a staff meeting and have 5 different reasons why they think that they're sitting at that table, and all of them are like, against each other. So it's really been helpful to me to hear you guys tell your stories. Jaisal, I want to I have maybe like 2 more questions, because I know we're wrapping up at 8:15 and we're coming up on that now. I wanted to give you a chance, Jaisal, to talk about maybe some of the things that weren't put into this piece that maybe we'll see down the road as the other pieces come up. Because like I said, I know that you have been working day and night on this piece, even through your birthday on Monday and other things. Like, are there any things that you kind of didn't get to address in the piece, or that you want to, and that you kind of want to really highlight for folks?
It's a really good question, because I was like editing that story for so long the last couple of days that I don't even exactly remember what made it in. Even though I just watched it, I don't exactly remember what made it in or what made it out. I think there's a really good part, and since Raina's here, she can tell us a little about it. But Raina really kind of broke down the high cost of cheap food in a really accessible way, and about how a lot of the work in the food justice movement is just educating consumers. It's like, why do you think that? I think Raina was like, why do you think that apple is like 30 cents? Just like having those conversations with people. I think it's like stuff that can inform all of our lives, like being intentional on where we, on where and how we get our food, and just like where we, like who we do our business with. I think those are important things that we can all think about. There's a lot more from the worker owners. And there's some beautiful, we saw the footage from New York, from the Bronx, from Ms. Choi and the worker owner at CHCA talking together. And they had the most incredible connection and bond that was just really powerful. And Ms. Choi even said, like, and I wanted to save that for the individual piece, but she's like, she's been on a home care for a while, and it's like, for the first time, the person who's working with me, like, actually has the energy and time to really like make me smile and to make me happy. And I can tell, like, even though they have to make a minimum wage, like, they actually they can be emotionally invested in their care. And so like something like, so some of those exchanges were really powerful. And I'm looking forward to, we have like hours and hours of interviews, but I'm looking forward to kind of digging into that crate and telling more of those stories and just like, helping educate people about cooperatives.
Raina, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but can you talk a little bit more about what Jaisal was talking about, the cost of food? I just think that's interesting, because basically all of you guys on here have something to do with food.
Yeah, Yeah, I've actually been thinking about this a lot. So I could backtrack to what Jessel was saying. So like a lot of people are used to food not costing that much. But when in reality, like, I guess I can go back to the apple, like the apple that you're buying from the grocery store is not, you're not just paying for the apple, you're paying for the farm hands that picked it. It got shipped to you somehow. It got put on the shelf at the grocery store. Someone is ringing you up and cash, somebody or a buyer purchased that apple and put it on the shelf, and then the cashier is ringing you out. So there's a whole long line of people on the way to you getting that apple. And the cheaper that apple is, the more everybody on that chain is getting shafted. And I think about this a lot. Like I'll go to, a cafe or whatever and be like, why is this sandwich cost so much? And then I think about it and you think, okay, somebody had to buy these ingredients and then someone had to make the recipe for this and someone is putting a sandwich together and then selling it to you. So when you pay for food, you're paying for the actual food item, but you're also paying for labor. And people everywhere, no matter what they do, should get a fair wage for their labor. And we make that clear in when we sell our product. You say we never mark up food. You're not like buying organic vegetables at a 50% markup. What you're really paying for is all the labor that goes into getting you this food. And I think if more people realize that, then they would be a lot more comfortable paying more for food. And it's just, like I said, an education process. And then more people along the chain will be getting paid more and everyone would be happier and eating healthier.
And the opposite of that is if you're paying nothing for food, then who got taken advantage for you to get that very low cost? I kind of want to bring.
Yeah, as I say, a lot of the times the free food is poor quality, it's the leftovers. And so and I think when we do a lot of free food distributions, we like to give good quality stuff, because even though you're getting free food, you shouldn't be getting the bottom of the barrel stuff.
And I want to hear actually from Vinny and Najee about this because you guys are in Baltimore. I'm a reporter from Baltimore, and I know, one of the things that I've spent a lot of time writing about is the inaccessibility of food for a lot of people, especially Black and brown people. And I know Red Emma's, you guys are kind of known for the vegan food that you offer. Vinny, everybody raves about Taharka Brothers ice cream. Can you guys kind of maybe even comment on maybe your relationship to food, maybe the things that you've learned from working at the places where you work? Maybe Vinny, we'll start with you about coming from a place like Baltimore where there's haves and have-nots, but also being in a place that's so focused on a quality food product.
Well, I think that's the number one thing that we take very a priority for us is our quality and our ice cream. That's pretty much what makes our ice cream so good. A lot of our added in flavors and things that we add inside our ice cream is all created in-house. So we have a guy that sits there and makes pounds of cookie dough pieces from scratch, and he's heating up flour to cook everything up and then mixing it up and adding the chocolate chip pieces. And then with the roasted strawberry, we cook all our strawberries down batch by batch. And literally almost every filling that we have for our pints, they all get made specifically by a person. Then it gets hand-packed individually by the guys in the factory. Then it goes to the shops where you have a young kid where they're scooping ice cream and trying to give the best quality service and keeping a relationship with the customers. That makes a statement in our product. And that's, I think, the number one thing why we take quality so serious, and that we like to support local. So we get our seasonal peaches from the farmers market in Baltimore. Same with some of the strawberries. We just try to focus on good quality and keep it local and supporting that circle around.
Okay. And what about you, Najee? Did your relationship to food change from working at Red Emma's, being a worker owner at Red Emma's? Have you kind of learned more about some of the things that maybe the other guests have been talking about?
Yeah, I did not understand before I started working how things get priced out or why they get priced out the way that they get priced out. And that was a surprise to me. Also, what needs to be done to keep prices sort of like in a sweet spot of being, especially the vegan food, accessible to people and also like profitable for us as a group. It's a little bit of a science that I did not understand before I started working at Emma's. I'm not crazy involved with the actual making of the food. I'm more of like a front of house person, and I do a lot of the people part of working at Red Emma's. But yeah, those are two things that I learned, I think.
Okay. All right. So wrapping up, I got about one more question. I just wanted to kind of leave with everybody kind of saying what you hope people take away from your story. And maybe I'll start with you, Raina. What do you hope that people who watch this documentary tonight, who maybe watch it later on, what do you hope that they walk away with about your story and co-ops?
I hope they first understand a little bit more about all the work that goes into food and working in food, but also I enjoyed seeing in most of the interviews, you can tell that everyone really enjoys their job and likes what they do. And I hope that comes across when I talk and when the other panels speak, because a lot of times, like, you know, food service work, home care work gets looked down on as kind of like, whatever, that's not a great job. But if you show people that you can actually do these jobs and make a living wage and love what you do, and even if it's not as like high status as some other jobs might be, I think just getting that message out there is really important.
And what about you, Najee?
I guess the sense of agency that we all get, I think, from working in a co-op is something that I think is huge, that's possible. You don't have to, I mean, you may have to be in that situation, but there's another possibility. There's another universe where you can have agency in the work that you do.
Mm-hmm. And Vinny?
I think overall, I think it's just you can overcome any obstacles. Being a Black male, coming from Baltimore City, there's so many things that's set as a statistic and the image that is put upon you before you even could show who you really are. I think that being a worker co-op, you give an opportunity for all your employees that they can represent who they are and know that they're just them being an employee, more than just being an employee, just them being a part of your organization means more than the world, that you can help them have more opportunities and they can give their opportunities to others in their household and make a change in their situation. Like I said, you can overcome any obstacle that you put hard work against to and make it happen.
Okay. And Jaisal, you are the reason why we are all here, so you get the final word. What do you hope that people take away from this story and the Taharka Brothers piece from last week, which if people have not watched it, it is on the Real News Network's website. Please give it a look. It's great. And when's coming up? What do you hope people take away from these stories?
I hope they learn more about co-ops. I think a lot of people don't know what co-ops are or actually understand what it means in real terms. I tried to like help explain that. And there's tons of resources. I think all the worker owners on this panel and all the workers we interviewed for the story, the organizations have websites, so you can go and learn more and learn the history. There is like a deep history internationally, and especially in the African American community in the U.S., like of worker co-ops, of cooperation. So they've been. It's not like a new thing at all, and I want to make that clear. It's existed for a really long time, and yeah, I mean, challenge everything we have been conditioned to know about work and who does hard work and what that work is worth. What we have been conditioned to think is not, it's based on the dehumanization of people that provide us things. And we have to humanize them and find ways to get them the things, they deserve. Like worker people should not be making a minimum wage and doing home care work. It's just insane that, especially in the pandemic when all those workers had to risk their lives, it's insane they have to make $15 an hour in New York City. Like, I don't even know how it's possible to live off $15 an hour when you have 2 young kids at home. So, there's real heroes out there doing this work. I hope everyone, just wants to learn more and find out how to join a co-op or just learn more about co-ops. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's it for us. I want to thank Jaisal. I want to thank all the rest of our panelists. Thanks to the Solution Journalism Network for giving us the money to be able to do this. Thanks to all the teams all over the United States that helped us shoot this beautiful video footage. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Lisa.